which is why recently when Pat Buchanan, the far right-wing conservative Republican basically came out in favor of legalizing all drugs, I said that to my parents, and they were like, wow, I mean, if Pat Buchanan is for this, we really need to start rethinking this. So here in Massachusetts, what the campaign realized is that people look to law enforcement for law enforcement issues, right? People look to law enforcement when they think, what's going to keep me safe? Is this new sort of controversial marijuana decriminalization thing going to keep me safe? And they're looking at law enforcement, and they're looking at cops, and they're saying, no, this isn't going to keep you safe. So what the campaign did is, in a brilliant move, they put all of their resources, all of their funding into 2 ads. Who saw these ads with the 2 police officers? If we had a projector in here, I would definitely show you these. They're great. 2 police officers, it used to be Boston police officers in their dress blues, talking about how the marijuana decriminalization initiative is going to free up police resources. It's going to, ensure that they can focus on violent crime. It's going to keep the state safer. And at that point, when those 2 ads, in the 2 weeks leading up to the vote, when those 2 ads came out, public opinion just started to skyrocket for this thing. I mean, we went from, I think it was like 54% up to like 67%, almost overnight. So what we did was we effectively neutralized the argument on the other side. It's not that we brought in more cops and people looked and they said, oh, well, the reform side has 100 cops on their side, and the anti-initiative side has 95 cops, so I better go with them. It was that if they agreed with us, they realized that at least some police agree with us as well on this issue. And that neutralized the argument, because until then, they were only seeing police on the other side of it, right? So again, with that campaign, what they realized is they were able to, at the very last moments of the campaign, they were able to pivot their strategy. And I like to, kind of use this analogy that, in sports and athletics, first thing they teach you, I'm not an athletic guy, I just noticed from, friends maybe, but the first thing they teach you is like, in football or dance or anything, is that in order to pivot well, you need a strong center of gravity, right? You need to lock your feet, get a strong center of gravity, and then, at a moment's notice, if, you're boxing and somebody, swipes at you, you can pivot really quick and dodge that. Same thing with politics, right? If you're focusing only on the tactics, it's like boxing without having a good stance, right? But if you're always focused in on the goal and strategy and figuring out, okay, what exactly are the goals here and who can change things, and and that kind of thing, and thinking deep about what those goals and strategies are, then when you shift a tactic like running ads about the economic argument to running ads about police, then you can really you can shift really quickly in order to meet your opposition where they're at. So that's sort of in a nutshell, really quickly, that's kind of the basic theory behind political organizing. And like I said, this isn't going to be a workshop. We could go through how to work with the media or how to build coalitions or that kind of thing. And if you come to our national conference coming up either in the fall or most likely the spring, next spring, we'll have small workshops where we can go through all that kind of stuff. But what I want to talk about right now is kind of how this theory of political organizing transfers to the larger, broader reform movement that both Kris and Ethan were talking about today, right? So I have 2 minutes. Okay. I'll quickly talk about this. So in the same way that when you're running a small local campaign, you need to focus on your long-term goal and your strategy before you figure out the tactics. It's the same thing with the broader drug policy reform movement, only our local campaigns are the tactics of this larger reform movement, right? So when we're decriminalizing marijuana in Massachusetts, let's say, we need to think about what the broad long-term goal of the movement is, and if the tactics that we're using here to, either change policy at the local level, enact a Good Samaritan campaign on campus, or enact a decriminalization policy in Massachusetts, are those leading us toward the ultimate goal. And basically, what's the drastic shift that we've seen within the past few years is that over the past, several decades, as Ethan laid out this sort of historical vision of the movement, the movement has essentially been creating opportunities for media and for gaining public opinion. So using campaigns like marijuana decrim or medical marijuana to create opportunities to force a debate on the issue. But now things are changing so that the strategy isn't creating opportunities; it's exploiting the opportunities that are already there for us. Because right now the public is, if you look at the public polling on, let's say, something like marijuana tax and regulation, it's going parabolic right now. We don't know how long that's going to last. But it's shooting up at a rate that, it's been going like percentage point by percentage point every year. And now, just in the past year, it's been shooting up. So, and there's all the media coverage that's happening on this. There's the border war in, Mexico. There's the Michael Phelps thing, exactly. So the changing strategy is taking a step back and looking at where the public's eye is already, and then stepping in front of that, right? Because before we've been trying to say, hey public, here we are, we're the drug policy reform movement. Now everybody's looking at this stuff. I was flying in from San Francisco last week, and during my layover, I was sitting at the gate, and on CNN there was a debate about marijuana legalization on the Larry King show. And I look around, and everybody in my gate, everybody in the terminal is watching this, is glued to the screen. And then the next story that comes on is Anderson, Anderson Cooper, exactly. Anderson Cooper on the border in Juarez talking about the Mexican drug violence, and then talking with a member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition about possibly legalizing drugs. And everybody in the terminal was glued to this, and I realized that this is the time. This is not the time, at least at this point. While this lasts, while this momentum lasts, this is not the point to really be focusing on these incremental changes, right? Those are important, and those have brought us to a really important point right now. But the focus right now is drawn to this issue so much that we need to be stepping up, and you guys need to be writing letters to your campus paper, and drafting op-eds and having forums on campus about the violence in Mexico and what this means for drug policy, and really taking advantage of the attention that's already being drawn to the issue and then exploiting that. So that's really what I would try to leave you with is in terms of what you focus on this semester or next semester on your campus. Definitely work on on the campaigns. Definitely work on campus change campaigns, because for a lot of reasons, they're earned media. They'll teach you how to run campaigns. You'll actually maybe save some lives if you implement a Good Samaritan policy. But think more broadly about what you can do to help push this issue forward nationally. So that's what I got for you. And yeah, any questions at this point? Any questions? Irina?
Would you suggest that, well, like you said with Farmington, they just went in and they talked to their dean, but that was after they had already collected a lot of signatures and a lot of information that there are so many students in support of it. Would you suggest, but then you were saying that they wasted a lot of time doing that at the same point.
Well, what happened in Farmington was they actually didn't go through with gathering petition signatures. They didn't get one petition. They drafted something up, and they were preparing for a long-term campaign. What was that?
There was no evidence of support even?
There was no evidence of support on campus. There was no, they didn't go through student government. The question, if you didn't hear that, is University of Maine Farmington, when they talked with their dean of students and overnight changed the policy. They were preparing for a long-term campaign, but you know, we talked, and like I said, I encouraged them to go and speak with the administration first to get their feelings on it and scope out the terrain, see if, you know, see what their objections were. And that's what I would suggest that you do if you're going to run a campus change campaign. Set up a meeting with your administration and ask a lot of questions. Don't necessarily try to convince them during that meeting, but ask a lot of questions. So, you know, what are your concerns about Good Samaritan policies?